Let's get into these fucking fights, baby. We got a decent card this weekend. It's nothing too crazy, but there's definitely some solid fights, including the main event, as well as a couple gems sprinkled in to the card. But we're gonna get started from the bottom and work our way up to the good uns. In the prelims, it's nothing too crazy looking. There was a couple matchups which I'll talk about. There's really just one that I wanted to talk about. Um, the Chaos Williams versus Matthew Semelsberger matchup. I think that's gonna be a fucking. I think that's got a high potential to be pretty good. Williams, he was on a streak, getting knockouts. He went against Michel Pahea, and he was really confused against him. Um, he had no answers for a lot of the unorthodox and like bouncing movement. Pahea's a tough fight. He's really tall, unorthodox, very fucking athletic. The dude is just a freak of nature. But he was giving Williams some work. If I remember, the teeps that he was throwing to his stomach and the straight shots that he were landing were really befuddling Williams, as well as his kind of unorthodox movement style and everything. Um, so that's what Williams is coming off of. And Semelsberger, I think he is on a two. He's on a win streak right now. A two fight win streak. I don't know. I believe so. I didn't write it down. He got a knockout, a pretty quick knockout. I believe his last time out, he went and sparked someone with a clean straight. And then his fight before that, he fought Carl Minus, and that was a decent scrap. Minus is still pretty dominant by Semelsberger, but Minus stayed. There was more happening. It was longer. It went all the distance, so you got to see more folds. The game plan come out, and they're kind of similar in what they like to do. They're both kind of like meat and potatoes on the feet. They're very it's just jabs and straights really, and occasional hooks. They're not like doing anything super crazy or anything high level, but they do it pretty well, and they both are able to time their opponents pretty well. Williams has shown the aptitude to find his timing early in a fight. And the only time we really didn't see that come to fruition was against Pahea, who was really befuddling him with the footwork, the head movement, and just like the risks that he provided. Like, you have to be worried about what's this guy gonna do when he's moving all weird like that. I think Semelsberger, it will be easier for Chaos Williams to find his target on him, because he's more of an orthodox fighter in the way he holds himself and his stance and his kind of like idle movements. But Semelsberger seems tough. I mean, both these guys don't have a whole lot of fights, so we don't really know a whole lot about, like, I mean, Williams he's coming off a lot of knockouts and only that one long fight. So that was the only time we really saw folds shown. So I think this will be a good fight. It's a pretty well matched fight, I think. And I think this one's got like potential to be a low key slapper, because I don't think either of these guys are really gonna like grapple that much. If anything, it might be a little boring on the feet if both get a little gun shy, because both have felt like what the other can do. But I feel like this should be a pretty good fight. I expect it to go the distance, 3 rounds of beatdown, but I wouldn't be surprised if an early finish happens there. And I honestly think it's pretty even. I would maybe say I might edge a little to Williams, because he came off a good loss where he learned a lot, where he had he was given the opportunity to learn a lot from that fight. So we'll see if he did, but I think that fight, if he did do good things and learned off that and saw what was giving him problems and maybe things he could do differently, I think he might, it might be a more one-sided affair, but we'll see. I'm excited about that one. And there wasn't really anything else on the prelims that seemed too exciting, that I really wanted to get into. Joaquim Silva versus Ricky Glenn, second fight of the night. That seems interesting. I didn't really look too much into either of these guys, but just looking off at the record, that seems like that might be a fun fight. And we have Alexa Kamur and Nikolai Negumeranu. I don't know. I probably sliced and diced my man's last name up. This is a light heavyweight. It's the top of the prelims. This should be fun. Light heavyweights are always fun. Big guys who can knock each other out, and a lot of these guys are pretty good at grappling too, so it's pretty fun. Pretty fun to watch them go. They're both coming off an L, so we will see. We'll see. I'm pretty sure I watched Kamur one fight, and Kamur, I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He had kind of like a weird, like almost taekwondo or karate-esque, like very kick-heavy style and like a very long stance, if I remember. But I believe he was just like, he was getting pounded on the face, like he was just not moving his head a lot. I don't know. I could be wrong, but that's what I vaguely remember seeing him in his last outing. I haven't seen anything about this other guy, I don't think so. But anyway, you know, light heavyweight fights, they're usually pretty good. It's a pretty solid division usually. You can usually count on a knockout or something. Now let's get into the main card where we did most of our work. This is a longer main card than usual as well. This is a 6-fight main card. The bottom of the card we got Matt Brown. Oh, sorry about that. And Diego Lima. I'm probably gonna roll with Diego Lima on this one because Matt Brown's on like a 3-fight skid, 2-fight skid. Yeah, he's on a 2-fight skid. He's super old. He's definitely, this is like one of his last fights, if not the last fight, you know, type. That's the kind of place he's in. I don't think Diego Lima is some like bustling young prospect who's just gonna like spark him or something. He doesn't have a high activity rate, which hurts him, and it kind of leads to boring fights. He has good left hooks, similar to kind of his brother, Douglas Lima. He low kicks and will look for that left hook, but he just doesn't do enough off of in his rounds, and that's what got him hurt against the Bilal. In his Bilal performance, why he took the loss there. And it was kind of a boring fight just because he wasn't doing anything. And it was just like, you know, Bilal was just massive. It was just like, it wasn't even taking that much from him. He'd just like punch him a couple, like jab him a couple times and just duck in. And like, Lima was really struggling with that. I don't think he's going to be facing anywhere near the issues he was with Matt Brown. I could see Matt Brown putting some work on him. He throws long, straight punches. You know, he gets on his teeth, gets right in there. But he's just kind of, his chin is shot, and he's old, which is a bummer. It's just the way time goes. But Diego Lima is not that old. He is a bit younger, even if he's a bit lackluster sometimes. He's still, I think he's in better fighting condition. His chin is definitely in a better place. We'll see. I'm not expecting that one to be that interesting, so hence why I didn't really do too much research on this one. But that's kicking off the night. I'm expecting that to be a 3-round affair. This next fight should be pretty good. Wellington Turman and Bruno Silva. So Bruno Silva is coming in from like M1 fighting championship. I believe that's where his last fights were at. But he's a heavy-handed middleweight. He explodes and throws very powerful, explosive punches. Wings into combinations. Let's see, what did I write here? He's got a snappy jab. In his fight, he didn't throw it as often as I like, and didn't like make it a staple of what was occurring in the fight. He kind of just like would do it as a one-off thing, but he threw it really fast and really like good. And I was like, man, I was hoping he would do more with it. He does a lot of like what kickboxing background fighters do, where they like shell up because you're used to it with the bigger gloves. You can just shell with your forearms in front of your head, and it's no issue. But in the MMA gloves, it doesn't really do all that much. People hook around the side or just come right through the middle. It's not really that good, and to see him doing that. Turman, however, he's a young fighter. He's coming off a loss where he got sparked against Andrew Sanchez. He took like a really fucking bad right hand. He hasn't fought in a while, which is good. I don't like seeing fighters get right back in there after they get knocked out like 2 months later or something. Like, it's good that he's waited. It's been a while, so I'm glad. It'll be better for his brain, And he's a young guy too. You don't want to see him fucking his life up. But he's coming back off that. He throws strong hooking shots. He really only throws like 1 to 2 at a time. He doesn't really pile up combos. When he does, it's kind of like Poirier-esque, where it's not like a fast flurry. It's kind of like he's just throwing punches at this like set rate, and they're just gonna keep coming, and he has time to like keep looking and picking his next shot. He does that, except he's not as like anywhere as defensively minded in the boxing as Poirier is. But he'll like get into the pocket and kind of stay in there and like choosing his shots. He's not like throwing some preset flurry really. I can get him in trouble, and I could get him in trouble in this fight. If he's like staying there in front of Silva, like say he's shelled up, and then this dude just like explodes on him. That could be bad. But Turman's, he's strong. He's acceptably good on the feet. He's got like vulnerabilities defensively where you see him getting hurt there. But he also is really good at wrestling. I see him. He puts fence wrestling pressure on people. He's pretty good at just, if not getting a takedown, at least tiring the guy out there. He is vulnerable, though. I've seen in his fights getting hit off the break in the clinch, though. Because while he is good there, fighters who are thinking of that shot are usually getting it on him, because he doesn't bring his arms up ever. His hands are down as he comes out of the clinch. And, that leads to catching an elbow or something like that. And that's not good. And he uses kind of like a post and retreat, except he doesn't really extend the post. He'll just kind of like push his front arm out and like backstep when he chooses to defend. And he doesn't choose to do that like very often. When I was watching him fight, it was like a lot of time he just steps in on someone when they're coming in. If they're like throwing a feint or a jab, he'll kind of just go in. He doesn't often like bite and react and like backstep out, but when he does, he just does the kind of simple, he just kind of backsteps with his arm like half extended, which is kind of, that leaves vulnerabilities to a more accomplished striker to take advantage of him. So this one should be pretty interesting. I see two things happening. I either see it being like a slapper on the feet, and these guys are just beating the shit out of each other, and either like Turman. I probably see Turman going down if anyone goes down, but it seems like Silva, when I looked at his losses, it seemed like he was vulnerable to grappling, and he was getting like submitted. Turman, he seems like he's pretty solid on the ground, but it seems like it's really the striking defense where he's struggling. So I don't really know which one this one's gonna go. That one's another kind of like pick 'em, especially since I haven't seen, this is Bruno Silva's debut in the UFC. There's always a lot of things that come with that, nerves and everything. So, but I think that could be pretty good. It'll either be that, or it'll either be a barn burner on the feet, or Turman like just wet blanketing Silva, if he finds that to be an acceptable route, like he does it and Silva can't do anything. It's like, well, I guess I'll keep doing this. I can see that happening. Hopefully not. Moving on up, we got Julian Erosa versus Seungwoo Choi. Hopefully I didn't destroy my man's name. This should be a pretty decent fight. Erosa's coming off of the landwehr knockout. He like flying kneed him and stunned him. That was a pretty good fight. And then before that, he fought Sean Woodson, and Sean Woodson is a pretty tough fight. He's a really good, fluid boxer. His throws really crisp combinations on the feet, which were giving Erosa problems. He was getting pieced up for like 2.5 rounds. But then the third round, he really gritted it out. He was able to get him to the ground, and he was being smart. He's like, well, this guy's good on the feet. He's probably vulnerable on the ground if he's a boxer coming to here. And he got him in a nice Darce choke and was able to finish it off. And he's coached by what's his name, dude? The middleweight. Tip of my motherfucking tongue, dude. Oh, I gotta figure this out. Good lord, it was James Krause. I can't believe that one was slipping my tongue for so long. I really like that guy. He coaches good fighters. He seems to have a good head on his shoulders and actually gives them good, actionable game plan advice to be performing in the fight. And that's good that Erosa has that in his corner. That's another asset. He has pretty solid head movement. It didn't look that way in the Woodson fight, but I mean, Woodson's just a much higher caliber striker. But he does move his head. You see him trying, at least. He's moving it. He's not just staying on stick. He will get caught sometimes, but, 'tis the name of the game. He's got a really good chin on him. He has good inside fighting. I see him getting like the one-hand collar tie behind the head, throwing like uppercuts and hooks around the side. He's good at making it dirty if he has to. He was doing that against Sean Woodson, where he was getting beat up in the technical exchanges. He's got good cardio. You don't really see him wilt as the rounds go on, which is good. It's a good thing to have. And that was about all I wrote down about my fella Erosa. That's what we got going on with him. I think this fight I probably will edge toward him, but Choi is pretty good, and he actually has a few things he does that are pretty dangerous. One, when I watched his last, I don't know if it was his last fight out or if it was 2 fights ago, but he's really good at getting the collar, the Muay Thai clinch going on, double collar tie behind the head, and then he just like blasts knees to the body, good elbows on the break. That inside area, he might give Erosa more work than Erosa can give him. So like when Erosa's there, he's kind of just throwing like truck driver uppercuts and stuff like that, bus driver uppercuts, and I think Choi, he really pulls on their head, and is like, he seems like he's much more technically trained in there, so he could give Erosa work in that range, and he's pretty good out on the feet. He throws lots of head kicks, nice straight punches. He's kind of basic with his punch selection, but it gets the job done. Pretty tight straight right hands, and he has really good ground and pound. When he is in the top position, he isn't really lazy there. He's good at punishing and scoring points on top. This will be another good fight. I'm happy this is not a fucking snoozer. I don't know if I see this fight getting finished within 3 rounds, but I definitely see this being a barn burner for 3 rounds. I don't see this being too much of a boring affair. And then moving on from that fight, we have Marlon Vera, Davey Grant 2. These gentlemen have already fought once, and Davey Grant took that one. Marlon Vera when you watch that, he seems much younger looking. It might have just been the way he did his hair, but that was very surprising. It was back in 2016 when that one happened. Both fighters have evolved since then. Back then, in that fight, it seemed like Marlon Vera's highest, the thing that he was providing most risk to Davey Grant was his ground game. And it seemed like on the feet, Davey Grant was giving Marlon Vera work, just winging his hooks and whatnot. Similar to the way he throws his punches now, I like throws his hooks like very John Lineker-esque. Like he doesn't ever do the thumbs to the ceiling. It's always thumbs horizontal. He throws really long hooks, but he puts snap on them. And that fight is it's a more rudimentary version of what he does now, and he's really good at either getting into the body and he whips these fucking nasty body hooks in, or he always looks for that left hook up top, which he's dropped 2 fighters. He dropped Martin Day, knocked him out with the left hook, and then he did like a switch stance left hook that caught Jonathan Martinez and put him out. He's really kind of coming into his own with the boxing, and he's solid on the ground. He's definitely no slouch. I believe that's like where he was better at when he started fighting and kind of tightened up the boxing. I really like watching him box. It's super fun to watch him. I like watching it. He gets in there. He does not really have a care about getting hit that much, and he will eat punches, and he'll go for those like risky like double, like right hook, left hook to the body where your chin's out there, but he'll go for it, and like it's fun to watch those punches come out. I like seeing that. He does get caught lacking because those hands are down, but that's the name of the game with that. Marlon Vera has good kicks and good distance management, and I think those kicks will play a role in this fight if he can get them going. Davey Grant also does throw good low kicks. I would probably say Vera's kicks are a bit better. And with the BJJ too, I would think that his is a bit better than Grant's. If it does go to the ground, I would think Grant would rather not be there and rather be back on the feet. I could be wrong though. And just the styling of these two guys, I feel like Marlon Vera is a bit more defensively minded when he's on the feet. He covers up a lot. He doesn't overextend too much. He picks his shots well. He counters, and he doesn't really overextend or put himself in vulnerable positions too much. And sometimes at a detriment, he'll allow the other fighter to like pile on volume and points while he's defending more and not throwing as much as he should. But it's also good when you're fighting, to be able to be more defensively minded. He shells up with the high guard a lot, which is not so good, and it could lead to issues. Grant whips one of these hooks around the side. He is super durable on the feet. Both of these guys are. Davey Grant will get dropped, but he recovers well. I don't really see Marlon Vera getting like knocked out, dropped that often in his fights. If any, he holds up pretty well with the chin. I like his teep kicks. I think that will play well into this fight, keeping Davey Grant away from that inside boxing area where he's better at. And he doesn't really throw that many jabs, but that would be a good punch to throw, because Davey Grant rarely throws the jab, and he quite often like starts his exchanges just hooks, just throwing a different flurry of hooks. Like he'll start the left hook and getting into the right hook, or he rarely throws a jab or like uses it to establish any sort of like presence. If Vera were to establish a jab, that could really pose some problems to Davey Grant. I mean, he could slip it and hook him, but an educated jab with feints and stuff could hold off Davey Grant and get him flustered and make him unwilling to like step in. Vera doesn't do it that often. Maybe he will. Maybe he will do it for this fight, but that would help him a lot, I think. Back over to Grant. I don't know what else we haven't said about him. He does get tagged coming in with his head because his hands are low, because he's usually coming in with body hooks. And he usually gets started in the fight with his leg kicks. He usually will, like the first couple minutes, he's just kind of leg kicking for distance. And once he kind of feels like he's got his distance, he gets in there with those hooks and starts tearing up. They're pretty fun to watch. He throws a solid amount of kicks. He throws good teeps and good low kicks as well. But again, here I think Vera is a better kicker than he is. But I think just throwing kicks doesn't mean he shouldn't throw. Some fighters just don't throw because they're like, he's a better kicker, there's no point. You can still get a better kicker, you know, like just time it. Like when the legs come down, anytime someone kicks, their foot has to touch the ground again, you know, and like you can catch that calf kick. And things like that. Yeah, I think this will be really good. I could see, I don't know if this will be, Marlon Vera is the higher ranked opponent this time round. I don't think this fight will play as it did their first one, where Davey Grant was really pressuring Vera on the feet and like flustering him and getting him uncomfortable. I think it will be a much closer fight on the feet. I will be interested to see if it gets to the ground at all. If Vera feels inclined to go do that, or Davey Grant, maybe Vera's going to be better on the feet and he decides to. That will also be an interesting exchange to see happen. This one will be a good fight. This one, I don't really think it will be that boring. Because Vera can have some boring fights, but if the other person is unwilling to like pressure and make it an entertaining fight, and Davey Grant usually will bring pressure. So that will be a slapper. I'm excited for this one. I'll probably edge to Marlon Vera on this one. Yeah, he's had a higher level of competition he's been fighting than Davey Grant recently. So even though he's coming off a loss, he has a lot of experience with higher level fighters that Davey Grant doesn't have yet. But also Davey Grant's he's on a surge. His confidence has to be roaring right now, which can help a lot in a fight like this. So we're at the co-main event of the evening. This one's not, we don't have too much to say about this one. Alexei Olenek, Sergey Spivak. You know, just some heavyweight slop fest. On the feet, there's not really too much to break down here. Spivak doesn't really do that much on the feet besides whip a big overhand, you know. And I think he does like pump out jabs, but they're not really that educated. Alexei Olenek does his crazy 8 punches because his arms are like the length of his body, and he just swings them from crazy directions. I mean, the only thing really compelling about this matchup is the ground game. It's like, will Spivak break through, or will he stay into the bottom of the heavyweight dregs? Will he be able to beat the old man? It's crazy. Alexei Olenek has come in to the UFC so old, and he has actually been like quite successful, like only really facing issues against like the top of the division. He's not even built like a heavyweight. It's crazy. The dude is just like he's just like a light heavyweight that won't cut, you know? Like he's fighting these dudes who are so much bigger, but he actually has technique on the ground and can do some crazy things. It's kind of an unfortunate matchup because Spivak's not like some bum on the feet or bum on the ground, and like, you know, he's actually a pretty competent wrestler and he ground and pounds a lot. He doesn't really look for submission, so it wouldn't even be like a grappling fight. It'd just be like, I do see Spivak probably, hopefully, you know, he's a much bigger guy, taking Olenek down or just like punching him in the face a bunch and just TKOing. It's going to be probably a sad old man finish is what I see in this fight. But, you know, it's the heavyweight division, so it could always be one of those ones where you're like, oh my fucking god, Olenek actually chokes this guy out. What the fuck? You know? Not high hopes for that one. That's about all the breakdown for that. Now we actually have a good fight. This is a real fucking slapper. The Korean Zombie versus Dan Ige. This is very compelling. Ige is kind of on a little bit of a tear. He came off he was on a tear, fought Calvin Kattar, lost. say tear is kind of a over exaggeration. He had a very close fight with Edson Barboza, which arguably he lost. Um, it's kind of one of the crux of Dan Ige. He's athletically and skill wise, he's pretty talented, and he's got a motor. He's got a high cardio rate, but he just some of the game plans that he goes into fights with, I don't know if it's a him thing. Maybe he's not following a good game plan that the coaches set out, or it's like the coaches are not setting out a good game plan, and but like the Edson Barboza fight was crazy. It's like the dude just decided to like point fight with Edson Barboza and like try to like come like dive in on him with catch 1-2 and like peel out, and it's like he was actually having some success even with this like bad game plan. Like the easiest one that has been proven to work is pressure the guy, make him move backwards so he can't throw any of his more powerful punches at you. Overwhelm him on the feet, see if you can duck in on a takedown and lay on him for like a minute or two, and soften him up. Like the game plan is there for beating Edson Barboza. And he did not go with that game plan. He went with his own game plan, which was not really that good of a game plan. He still got to win. It was a close one, which I edged Barboza on that. I thought Barboza did enough to get the win. But he came off that, and then he lost to Calvin Kattar, and that was a tougher fight. In my brain, I thought it was a much more one-sided affair of like Calvin Kattar beating the shit out of him, but it was actually a pretty close fight. He was actually in that for a good amount of time, but there was just Calvin Kattar had the bigger moments, dropping like Ige and like putting him on his back. He came off that. He got the first round knockout over Gavin Tucker, which is kind of unfortunate. We don't really get to, it doesn't really tell us much about any evolutions or different things. I mean, the one thing we did see there was, I feel like Ige usually likes to throw a lot of like overhands and hooks and stuff, but here he stepped in and threw a super fucking tight, straight right hand, which is the reason why he got that first round knockout. He like put it on Tucker's chin just like a piston straight, and it knocked him out before he could even see it. Unfortunately, we didn't get to learn anything else. That's about all we got to learn. He is jumping up in competition here. This is a backup to like Calvin Kattar echelon, right? Like this is the top level guys in the division now you're fighting against. And you could even argue, I would even say the Korean Zombies, maybe it could be a tougher fight for him just based off of the experience, the ground game threat. I don't think in other fights Ige will shoot takedowns a lot and go for them. I don't think he's going to be as willing to do that against an accomplished, like such a good grappler, On the feet, I could see Ige actually having solid amount of success because he's so fast and explosive. He gets in and out. He's able to close distance well and crowd people with his hooks, and he has a chin on him, and he's not really scared of going in and eating some to get his punches. And the Korean Zombie can be a little bit slower, especially like in the footwork aspect of things. Like Ige will move around and bounce and like explode in and out, whereas the Korean Zombie is a bit more methodical. He'll explode out into jabs and like close distance for a punch, but he's not as explosive as what Ige does, as the closing the distance, like big amounts of distance. We'll have to. There's a lot of questions. I wanted to really watch the Ortega fight. I could not fucking watch it on Fight Pass, which is like, what the fuck am I paying $100 for this shit? But that's the way it is. But I wanted to watch that shit because that showed a lot of the defensive weaknesses that the Korean Zombie has. He's a really good counter striker, and he will look for the counter, but he can get caught just waiting for that counter and wanting that counter, and instead of establishing maybe his jab or some other, low kick or some threat to maybe then make his counter more easier. The Ortega fight, he got caught just wanting to. I mean, one, Ortega came out, I think, a lot better and a lot different of a fighter than they were anticipating. He looked a lot better on the feet. He was much more comfortable, mixed it up better than the Korean Zombie, with his kicks, the punches, the variety of things, the spinning elbows and stuff. That was giving him problems. Whereas the Zombie likes to punch, which could be an issue for Ige, really. The Korean Zombie, he's shown proficiency with getting reads on boxers and countering pretty efficiently, and like being able to finish people. You know, Dennis Bermudez, Frankie Edgar, Renato Moicano. These fights are all very similar in how, like, you know, a person who most of the time they're not mixing it up with like crazy kicks with him. They're wanting to trade punches, and he gets his reads super fucking fast within the first round and commits to a counter fully, and it hits, you know. I could see that definitely happening because Ige doesn't really switch up that much with his strikes. It's not like he's throwing lots of side kicks, spinning kicks, you know, like he's more predictable with his punch choice and what he does. Even though he's fast and explosive, and I could see him catching the Zombie before he's ready, I also see that, like, this seems to be in the wheelhouse of what he's good at. And if he's able to catch his read, this would be the read he would be able to catch. I feel like are these reads on Ige coming in for boxing exchanges. If he does decide to mix in wrestling, that could be pretty interesting. As well as, like, I like when he comes in and digs to the body. That could really pay dividends, I think, with the Zombie, because he's a hard-headed dude and he really doesn't get knocked out. Like in the Ortega fight, even when he got hit with that spinning elbow that would have knocked most people out, he still was able to keep going. And a lot of why that dropped him is that's like those ones you don't see coming are the ones that usually knock you out. And that was the one you didn't see coming, and it still didn't knock him out. You know, I think Ige investing to the body early will then leave the head a lot more vulnerable. And he does invest to the body, so that could be good for him. He will pull guard off of failed takedown attempts, which I think will be super fucking bad if he does decide to do that against the Korean Zombie. You don't want to pull guard against this guy. Like you saw it in the Calvin Kattar fight. There'd be moments where Kattar would either hit him with a body punch or a kick to the stomach, and he would have Ige hurt, and he would press in. Ige was shooting for a takedown. He's too compromised to finish. He just kind of pulls guard. Or other times where it's just even a takedown that's just getting stuffed well, he'll just kind of like pull guard off it, and it's like, that's not good, you know, unless you're like the echelon of like, you're like Paul Craig or something where you're just, or even like Ortega, or like, you know, these guys who are super good, super active off their back, or Oliveira, you know, like it's acceptable to pull guard there, but even then it's still not that advisable because it's like, you know, it's not that hard for somebody who's good to sit on top and be defensive and not open up. But yeah, that could be an issue I see. I see the low, if the low kicks of the Korean Zombie, that could be good. I could see that slowing Ige's movement down and leaving him a lot more hittable. You know, his face gets left out on a platter a bit more. I think Ige's a bit more defensively minded than the Zombie. He leaves his hands low because he's looking for these counters and he wants these counters. And he will flurry with fast combinations, which is, Ige doesn't flurry with fast combinations as much, and they're not as accurate. Like in some of those inside exchanges, when the Zombie decides to go, I think he will have the boxing advantage. Might force takedowns from Ige. This I expect this to be a super fucking good fight. Whoever wins, I'm probably gonna edge. It's tough because he's coming off a loss and you don't really know if he's making good adjustments or if he's mentally in a good place. But you know, they've had a different level of competition. He's tasted like an extremely, that's like champion caliber ship, you know, he's been around the top, and I think that will play a difference, and I think, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. He could be at a point where maybe he's like just struggling in his career and his game, the way he fights doesn't work anymore. But I don't know. I know there was also some emotional things going into the Ortega fight where they were like really fucking pissed at each other and stuff. So we'll see. Maybe this will be a little different. Either way, it's gonna be a fucking barn burner. This is a solid card. There's some boring scrap, but there's definitely enough good fights to make this worth watching. Yeah. Well, thanks for listening. We'll be back at it. Probably have a video posted Sunday, Monday of the breakdown of the card. See how my predictions went. Predictions / things I saw happening. See if any of that actually happens. All right. Adios.